Hello, welcome to our discussion today on too many invoices, too little time. I'd like to introduce our guest today. Firstly, Ben Botterill, Head of AP and AR at Business Waste. He's been enrolled for 8 years. And joining him is David Bradshaw from the listening team at Documation. He's been with the team for 20 years and has a wealth of experience helping customers automate their finance processes. So that's enough on the introductions. Let's get on with what we're going to talk about today. So firstly, David, if you could introduce us to your relationship with Business Waste. How did it all start?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So it was back in 2020. I visited actually, and it's clearly a well-structured organisation, good teams in place, and they were looking to improve their processes. 2020 obviously was a challenge with the lockdowns. That required us to work differently and on both sides, and we both adapted to that really well. One of the positives was Documation actually hosts the solution in the cloud for Business Waste. So it just removes a lot of reliance on IT availability and resource. So we could take on a lot of that setup work. But yeah, it was a good introduction, clear requirements that we could work with and help with. So yeah, that's how we started off.
Right, brilliant, thanks. And Ben, I know that you weren't actually there at that time, but do you know what your AP processes looked like before automation?
Yeah. So it was all done manually, really. So every invoice we got, we had to match up to jobs in the system. There was zero automation in that process, and I think what we found was invoices were kind of, because we were growing as a business, we were getting more and more invoices every single month from our suppliers, and we were kind of in a position consistently where we were having to hire more staff into the accounts payable team because of the fact that we didn't have any automation in place that could kind of pick up that slack, really. So a lot of manual processing, but then before that, what kind of came from that was a lot of queries on invoices that were kind of building up because we were spending so much time processing invoices. We had then a hell of a lot of queries from our suppliers where they want the time at the end of each month to really get stuck into them and find resolutions and see credit. So they were kind of building up over a period of time as well. So they peaked at some really high levels, which then in turn, I mean, we've never really had bad supply relationships at all. We never have. But again, it's always nice to be in a position where you've got low queries. Obviously, we can pay people all their invoices on time and so on. But yeah, there was a lot of queries, quite a big team as well, and only increasing at that point in time. And a lot of time spent processing invoices, pretty much all of the month spent processing invoices with very little time to do anything else.
So was that manual inputting the invoices as well as matching them? And
Yeah. So the only kind of, I say, automation we had was that we had when we got invoices, we had a software that would pull the PDF from the emails that we got, and then what we'd be doing is we'd be splitting up however many thousand invoices we got individually by the people in the team, and then they just have to go through and manually process every single one of them. So they'd essentially grab the invoice, input all the information, then find the jobs in the system, match it up. If it matches, obviously reconcile the invoice. If it doesn't, put it into query. But a lot of our time as the accounts payable team was just spent processing invoices. And there was other bits that we did as well, but there was just not much time for the stuff that comes after invoices, like our statement checks and queries and so on.
Right. And how does invoice volume and time pressure affect your team?
I think when it comes to invoice volume and time pressure, there's a lot of stuff that we need to do within accounts payable, and one of our main KPIs is that we keep our queries as low as possible. And I mentioned before that if we spend all our time processing invoices, then we have very little time for queries. We also then, as a team, we deal with all like the weight data and stuff. So within our industry, within waste, like we get all the weights for all the bins and stuff back from suppliers, and we've got to deal with all that as well. I think in terms of how it affects us, I think it definitely affects the accuracy of all the other things that we do as well. Because when you're talking all the time pressure, say if Documation disappeared today, then we'd be under a hell of a lot of pressure because there'd be thousands more invoices that we'd need to process manually. And we're also aware that processing invoices isn't the most exciting job in the world at times. So if in terms of increasing job satisfaction, definitely having automation in place really does help. But yeah, I think we kind of noticed there's quite a lot of turnover in the team as well, because again, like I say, people were coming in and all they were doing was processing invoices all day, every day. Whereas with automation, we can then obviously allow for different tasks and different focuses within the team.
Yeah, and team turnover is expensive, right? I mean,
Yeah.
not just on the recruitment, but the training up and everything else, and all that investment you put. If they're then not staying, it's an extra cost to the business that you really don't need.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because a lot of people don't factor in the time that's spent, like, because you have to have someone experienced doing the training, whether it be a senior person or someone that's been with the business. So you lose their time for
Yeah,
well, we usually say 3 months is kind of the training period for someone starting with business waste. So there's all that comes with it as well. So yeah, I think when it comes to the, like I say, the pressures that come with it, it's almost one of them where it's not necessarily within the data when you look at invoices going through and how many we're getting each month, how much we're having to process, but it's almost a bit of a hidden area where it does increase the pressure on the team.
yeah,
So it's like, yeah, we kind of always want to put the team in a position where there's always going to be invoices to process and stuff, like there will naturally, but if we can have that number as small as possible, then it definitely means that job satisfaction is definitely a lot higher within the team. Because like I said, processing invoices, I've only done a few in my time because I didn't start in accounts payable. I was more receivables, and then came over to oversee the team. But even the few that I've done, like I say, to do thousands in a month, it's quite a big task.
yeah, definitely. And David, are these the sort of typical pain points you come across regardless of industry, not just in the waste industry, but generally?
Yeah, well, a lot of what Ben said there is it's repeated across any industry, like you say. So I think what we're often asked to sort of consider is doing more with the same team, or even less, so that people can spend their time doing other more interesting tasks, as Ben alluded to there, or more value-added tasks for the business. So we're often asked to do that, and that comes in two forms normally. It's either no automation in place at all. So the immediate issue normally is like manual data entry that we're solving with AI data capture. But sometimes we'll have organizations that are on their second or third solution as far as automation goes. That's a little bit more focused on why are the straight through processing results so low and how can we improve and address that. But also you get all the latest technology with our solution as well, if you're replacing something. So yeah, regardless of industry, always the same sorts of challenges. It's just where are you in that journey, and how can we help best?
Right, right. And Ben, what was it that made Business Waste decide it was time to automate?
Well, I think over from when we started operating in 2015 up until obviously what David mentioned 2020, when we kind of reached out about like automation and invoice processing, we'd seen quite quick growth, and that didn't show any signs of slowing down, and it hasn't since. Obviously 2020 was maybe a little bit of a different year in 2021 because, like we all know, obviously we had lockdown and everything, but other than that, every single year we have seen quite significant growth, and with growth comes more jobs being booked on, and then more supplier invoices as well, and we've seen a massive increase in that over time. And I think we kind of got to the point where we kind of forecast essentially how many staff are we going to need in accounts payable if we kind of continue at the same rate in the next 5 years, 10 years, and the numbers were quite scary. So that I think that's what I kind of alluded to the other stuff as well about the number of queries and the amount of time we had to spend on them as well, and also the fact that like consistently across the board, a lot of the feedback we kind of got from people, whether it be people working the team or people that were leaving, was that the time that they spent processing invoices wasn't, they didn't necessarily enjoy that. But yeah, I think it was more that we looked at the forecast for, if we carry on as we are and the invoice numbers continue to go up as they are, we're going to need significantly more people in accounts payable than if we didn't decide to automate.
Right, right. Sort of reached that tipping point that it just became untenable, I suppose.
Yeah.
And David, what did that automation look like from a provider point of view? What were when you first had your first few calls and chats with Business Waste, what did that look like?
Well, it's actually our standard solution. There are certain areas that are different from organisation to organisation, say chart of accounts and what your approval process is and things like that. That's something we always take into account on a per customer basis. But otherwise, the workflow we deployed was all standard, and we very much focused on PO invoices for business waste. That's where our focus is, and that's where we help the most with automation. So yeah, that's what we do. And actually, sometimes we come in to address one problem, but the way the solution's set up is we can expand on that, and we can grow and add efficiencies over the years if we need to, which is we'll probably talk about that, but it's something we've been working with Business Waste as well.
So just looking at ongoing automation throughout the sort of life of your relationship, really, it's never stopping, is it? It's always looking for new ways to continue streamlining.
Absolutely, yeah. It's get that straight through process as high as possible,
Right.
and the more time AP can spend on other tasks and supplier relationships and all the other good things that they can work on.
Yeah. So what kind of results have you seen, Ben, since implementing the solution?
Yeah, well, I kind of looked back at the figures over like a period of time, but even thinking about there was obviously an instant impact because it reduced the manual work immediately. But over time, the like David kind of alluded to, the system and what we've done with it is developed over a period of time with a greater understanding of essentially what we need to have in our other systems to enable Documation to perform at the highest level. So the most recent month that we've kind of just gone through, which we've just processed June's invoices, because we always work a month behind in accounts payable. So it's just over 71% of the invoices we put through Documation that went through, which is really positive. We're kind of aiming to continue to push that forward, and again, I mentioned before, there's always going to be stuff that goes into query because, like I say, we don't have control over what our suppliers invoice us, and there's always going to be slight discrepancies in there. But the aim is to continue to push that further and further, and hopefully exponentially increase that to a point where like there's minimal amount each month that we kind of have to work through in terms of invoices. But yeah, just over 71% in the most recent month.
Wow, that's great. And that 71% straight through processing. I mean, when you think that it was all manual before, that's just must be such a relief. Brilliant.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Great. And David, how closely do you work with Ben and Business Waste as their account manager? What's your ongoing relationship look like?
Yeah, we meet regularly actually. A lot of that's virtual calls, but I do attend site as well, especially if I'm in the area. It's always good to go and meet face to face. Something we like to do as much as we can. What I want to ensure I do is understand what Ben's team are doing operationally, month in, month out. That allows me to have insight into their processes and workflow, and I can introduce ideas, or we can discuss things and see if we can maximize the automation that's already in place. So it's very much keeping in regular contact, making sure we're getting the most out of the solution, but also going on to discuss improvements or expanding to other areas as well if we can.
Right. And I guess knowing sort of what's on the Documation roadmap and having a good understanding of how Business Waste operate, you can kind of marry up the two and make sure that Business Waste are getting the best that they can possibly get from the solution in the future and now.
Absolutely, yeah. It's we've got a very active roadmap. So that's something we're always looking forward and discussing. And I know things that are coming up and Business Waste will be benefiting from in the future. That's for sure.
That's great. So Ben, what do you think the biggest benefit or the best feature of Documation's automation is for you and your team?
I think it's more like the doors it opens for us to actually focus on other areas, because we used to spend so much time processing invoices, it was almost like as soon as that month starts, it's then like you can just roll again and you've only just kind of finished processing the invoices from the month before. Whereas it's allowed us to actually review our processes that kind of come after that point. I mentioned about statements, but then I also mentioned about queries as well. And I also kind of mentioned about the overweights as well. But it allows us to identify areas where we can be more efficient as well, and also frees up like time for senior people within the business, and especially within the accounts payable team as well. Because there was points in the past when you'd have like the manager processing invoices as well, and like team leaders and stuff, like we'd be having to split them up between everyone because of the sheer volume that we were getting. And also then saving us time on our overtime, like having to pay overtime to try and get everything through for the month as well. I don't think we've had to do overtime in accounts. I can't remember the last time we had to do overtime in accounts payable to make sure that we finish the month. We always finish in a relatively strong position. But I think definitely the doors it opens when it comes to actually being able to then not only look at continuing to develop the processes we've got with Documation, but then the other areas that we can focus on as well. and increase efficiencies within there. Because I remember like when we first kind of were looking at installing the solution, there was overtime consistently going in from the team as well, which is a cost to the business. Whereas now we're in a position where we don't really need to do that, and we're still also becoming more efficient. Like Documation, pretty much every month gets better. We always find something new, or like I say, whether that be internally or whether that be speaking to the likes of David and the other guys, we always find something where it's like, actually, yeah, there's something else that we could work on, or we could tweak this, or we could do some more work with one of our suppliers to make sure they're sending us things in the right format. So it kind of opens the doors for us to essentially become more efficient. And without that, it would just be a case of every time the month starts, right straight into processing invoices, and it's just without actually having that time to take a step back and actually think, right, okay, where can we map out the whole process we've got within accounts payable, and where are inefficiencies, what's essentially costing us the most time, and where can we address that. So I think it's more the doors it opens when it comes to actually being able to take a step back, look at where we can be more efficient, and then save time on that front, which, like I said, I mentioned, very little, well, there's no overtime that we do in accounts payable compared to what it was before, which was a massive figure many years ago. So yeah, I think definitely the doors it opens for us with increasing efficiency across the whole team.
Yeah, I think I've heard that before from another customer, where they've actually, it's really important. They were very strong on this at the beginning, saying it's really important not just to automate the processes you've already got, but re-look at those processes and see how you can reimagine them. And then once you've got a bit of automation in place, you've got the time and the headspace to kind of look at the way you've been doing things, because that's the way you've always done them, and think, is actually that the best way? You know, is that the best process for us as our business, and as our business develops, to continue doing it that way? Or should we actually rethink this part of it? And having that time and headspace to do that is so important. And I guess also your team must be much happier. I guess you'd have much better team retention now, with them not doing such a mundane, let's face it, not a hugely satisfying job. So I guess that must be a good plus of it as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I say, we've got good experience within the team now. We've got people who, like I say, are very experienced in different areas and stuff. And like I say, we do forecasts and stuff for how we're going to look for, but we can kind of forecast ahead for months, because, like I say, within accounts payable, it's a lot of it is data driven. So we can let the data drive a lot of our decisions when it comes to staffing and focus and what we're going to look at on month as well. But we're always kind of finding different solutions and stuff, and different things that can work, which without this we won't have the time to do. There's like one supplier where we've had a bit of an issue with the way that they invoice us, and it's quite a hefty supplier as well. And just this month we found a solution, which means that they can now start going through Documation. And that was something that we found internally, where it was like, actually, just the way that we're putting it through, there's something different we could tweak, which would make it work. So even that, like you're talking hundreds of invoices, which we can now start putting through as well. So it's just that time that it creates really for us to find efficiencies and look at a different area of the process, whereas like I said before, you'd have managers and stuff processing invoices, you'd be like smashing in loads of overtime just to make sure that we finish the month. Whereas usually now by about the 20th, we've done our invoices and we're on to just doing our statement checks, getting them done, and then we're on to queries, and we've got a good week and a half or so to actually get our queries done and dusted. So it's created a hell of a lot more time, but also that time then to take a step back, because like you said, we at times, like I think like any business, you fall into the trap of just doing it this way because that's the way we've always done it. But actually taking a step back and reviewing that, and it's not necessarily just in accounts payable. Even for me, if we were in a position now where everyone was having to manually process invoices, and I'd have no one below me in accounts payable who I could then speak to and be like, right, okay, what we're going to do about this? We're spending too much time on statements, or we're spending too much time doing this with queries. So yeah, it's definitely opened a lot of doors for us to make sure that we become more efficient across the whole process within accounts payable.
Yeah, brilliant. And what's next on the horizon for you guys at Business Waste?
I kind of alluded to it earlier, but new developments, and like we're still continuing to grow year on year. Everyone has waste; it's never really going to disappear, so it's quite a good industry to be in. Yeah, we're still continuing to grow year on year, and that does mean more invoices. So we're looking at like some new developments, which me and David have been working on, along with a few of the other guys as well, to essentially just increase that efficiency more and more. And we're hoping to, like I say, increase that percentage exponentially over the next the next. I'd say I want to be sat here in a year's time with like us maybe having to spend maximum like a week, if not less, processing invoices, and really pushing that. But yeah, new developments. And obviously, like David mentioned about a documentation roadmap as well, there might be things that kind of come up in there that are able to help us really push that on. But yeah, in an ideal world, we'll be in a position every month where we have minimal invoices that don't go through, teamwork on them. They either go into query or it might be something we need to tweak in the system. We get them fixed, then we're straight onto statements. And we're kind of in a position where like the team don't really have too much time that they have to spend within accounts payable. And there's other areas that we definitely can put that time into as well. It's at the moment, maybe we don't have that, but like I say, in the next maybe 6 to 12 months, we really want to push ahead with getting these new developments in because we know they're going to work. It's just in its final stages at the moment.
Brilliant. That's great. So maybe in a year's time we can talk again and we can see if we can get that 71% up and have a celebration, online celebration, and to use straight through processing percentages. That would be brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been really insightful. I've enjoyed talking to you, and thank you, David, too, for your time. I will hopefully catch up with you very soon, and I'd like to get you back sometime in the future, Ben, and we can talk about this again. Thank you both.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you both.
Thanks. Bye.